Have you ever eaten something every day, thinking it was good for you, only to find out later that it might be quietly harming you where it matters most? I'm talking about a common nut that many men over 60 eat daily, sometimes in trail mixes, smoothies, or even health bars, without realizing the shocking truth. This innocent-looking nut could be one of the hidden culprits behind weaker, shorter-lasting erections. Hello, I'm Dr. Nolan Easton, and after more than 30 years of working with men's health, I can tell you, what you eat after 60 can either keep your blood flowing strong or slowly choke off the very circulation your body depends on for performance, vitality, and confidence. Now, let me tell you about one of my patients, Harold. He's 67, a retired teacher, and he came into my office one morning looking more frustrated than I'd ever seen him. "Doc," he said, "I'm eating right, exercising, even lost 10 pounds, but something's just not working down there anymore." He motioned downward, embarrassed, his voice quieter than usual. Like many men his age, he thought the issue was just part of getting older. But when I asked about his diet, one detail jumped out immediately. Every morning, Harold started his day with a handful of mixed nuts: almonds, walnuts, cashews, and one particular nut that was doing more harm than he knew. See, not all nuts are created equal. Some, like walnuts, are rich in omega-3 fatty acids that help improve blood flow. But others, like the one Harold was eating every morning, are high in compounds that raise inflammatory markers and disrupt nitric oxide production, the very molecule responsible for keeping your blood vessels open and responsive. When nitric oxide drops, blood vessels can't expand properly, and blood flow to sensitive areas, especially below the waist, becomes restricted. I'll get into the specific nut and its impact soon, but first I want to explain why this even matters so much for men after 60. As we age, our arteries naturally stiffen a bit. That's just part of the process. But when you combine that with even a small daily dose of inflammation from certain foods, the result is compounded damage. It's like adding a tiny bit of rust to a pipe every day. You don't see it at first, but eventually that pipe clogs. And that's exactly what was happening to Harold. His blood tests showed mild inflammation, slightly elevated triglycerides, and reduced nitric oxide levels. But there was nothing medically wrong with him. No disease, no medication issue, just a silent dietary trigger. When I told Harold that one of the nuts he thought was healthy could be doing this to him, he didn't believe me at first. "Doc, nuts are heart healthy." And he's right, some are. But it's the type of nut and how your aging metabolism processes its fats that makes all the difference. See, after 60, the male body doesn't metabolize certain oils and acids the same way it used to. Your liver becomes less efficient at clearing out oxidized fats, and those fats can build up in your arteries, reducing blood flow throughout the body, including to the penis. If you've ever felt like your erections just aren't as full or as consistent as they used to be, or if you've noticed that morning performance has faded, diet could be playing a bigger role than you think. And it's not always about sugar or cholesterol. Sometimes it's the foods we're told are good for us that are secretly doing the damage. I told Harold to cut out this nut entirely for just 3 weeks and replace it with something better for blood flow. A simple switch that supports nitric oxide and artery flexibility instead of constricting it. The results? Within a month, he was back in my office smiling. "Doc," he said, "I don't know what kind of magic that was, but I feel like I'm 45 again." His confidence had returned, his relationship had improved, and his morning energy was back. That's the kind of transformation that's possible when you understand what's really happening inside your body. And it's exactly why I make these videos, to help men like Harold and men like you avoid the hidden traps that can silently steal your vitality. Before we continue, I'd love for you to take a quick second. If what I'm saying hits home, give this video a thumbs up. And type yes in the comments if you've ever wondered whether your diet could be affecting your performance. I read every comment personally because your feedback helps me make better, more focused advice for this community of strong, wise men over 60. When Harold came back for his follow-up, I showed him something that made his jaw drop. On the table was a simple bowl of mixed nuts, the same kind he'd been eating for years. I asked him to point to his favorite. He picked the shiny crescent-shaped one without hesitation. These, cashews, I snack on them all the time. And there it was, the very culprit behind his circulation troubles. Now, Let me be clear. Cashews aren't poison, but for men over 60, especially those dealing with lower testosterone, high blood pressure, or circulation problems, they can quietly worsen the very systems that support strong erections. Why? It comes down to how the fats in cashews interact with your aging metabolism. Cashews are high in omega-6 fatty acids, the kind that cause inflammation when your body doesn't have enough omega-3s to balance them out. Think of omega-6s like tiny sparks of fire in your bloodstream. When you were younger, your body could handle those sparks easily. But after 60, when your arteries are less flexible and your nitric oxide levels naturally decline, those sparks can turn into inflammation that damages your blood vessel lining. And what does that mean for your manhood? Less flexibility, less blood flow, and eventually a weaker response when you need it most. Harold's story wasn't unique. I've seen dozens of men just like him, fit, active, doing all the right things, but unknowingly eating something every day that was sabotaging their progress. The worst part is cashews are marketed as heart healthy. They're in snack bars, energy mixes, and clean eating plans. But the truth is, when your system can't clear out excess omega-6 fats efficiently, they accumulate in the lining of your blood vessels. Over time, they can reduce nitric oxide sensitivity, the very thing that triggers firmness and responsiveness below the waist. When Harold stopped eating cashews, we replaced them with walnuts, rich in omega-3s that do the opposite. Instead of inflaming the blood vessels, they calm them. They improve circulation, help the arteries relax, and support nitric oxide release. Within weeks, Harold's energy, mood, and even sleep improved. That's because better blood flow doesn't just affect one part of the body, it improves everything. Now, I want to talk about why this issue gets overlooked. Most men never connect diet and performance. They think it's just hormones, age, or stress, but your blood flow is the real key. If your arteries are inflamed or sluggish, no supplement or blue pill will fix that. Pills can force temporary blood flow, but they don't heal the cause. What we want is natural responsiveness, the kind that happens because your body wants to respond. When I explain this in my clinic, I tell men it's like the difference between forcing open a rusty pipe with pressure versus cleaning the pipe from the inside. Cashews and certain other nuts add rust. Walnuts, almonds, and pistachios, when used right, help polish that pipe clean again. And here's another reason men over 60 struggle: magnesium. Cashews are high in oxalates, which can bind to minerals like magnesium, making them harder to absorb. Low magnesium equals poor blood vessel relaxation. Poor vessel relaxation equals, you guessed it, trouble achieving or maintaining firmness. So while cashews might seem harmless, they can create a chain reaction that hits your circulation, hormones, and confidence all at once. Now, I want to ask you something personal, man to man. Have you noticed that your stamina or response time isn't what it used to be? Do you feel like you're doing all the right things, but your body just isn't cooperating? If that sounds familiar, drop a quick yes in the comments. It helps me know how many of you are going through this so I can make more videos that address it directly. And while you're there, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Every week, I share practical, natural advice to help men over 60 rebuild their strength, circulation, and confidence without the embarrassment of doctor visits or expensive treatments. After Harold's transformation, I started encouraging all my patients to reevaluate their diets. One man, Ray, age 72, told me that he'd been eating handfuls of cashews during his golf rounds for years. He switched to walnuts and almonds instead. 3 weeks later, he said, "Doc, I didn't realize how sluggish I'd been feeling until now. My energy is up and my mornings are, well, stronger." That's the kind of feedback that keeps me passionate about this work, because every man deserves to feel strong and capable no matter his age.
When most men hear the words blood flow, they immediately think of their heart. And that's true. Your heart is the pump. But here's what most people don't realize. Your arteries, especially the tiny ones that carry blood to your pelvic region, are just as important. And they're also the first to show signs of trouble. By the time a man starts noticing that his erections aren't as strong or frequent, it's rarely an isolated issue. It's an early warning sign, a signal that the smallest arteries in your body, the ones that supply the most sensitive tissues, are getting less flexible, less responsive, and less able to handle pressure. When I explained this to Harold, he looked a little stunned. You mean my performance issues were actually a sign of something bigger? He asked. I nodded. Exactly. Your body's been whispering for years. You just didn't know how to listen. And here's where that nut we talked about earlier plays a dangerous role. The fatty acids in cashews, especially when eaten in large amounts, can create tiny oxidative changes in your blood vessels. Over time, this weakens the delicate inner lining called the endothelium. That lining is where nitric oxide, your body's natural signal for erection, is produced. Damage it even slightly, and your system can't respond properly when arousal begins. I tell my patients this: an erection isn't a muscle problem or a testosterone problem, it's a circulation problem. And circulation depends on the health of that endothelium. You could have normal hormone levels and still struggle if your arteries can't open up the way they used to. Now, the good news is that this damage is not permanent. Your arteries are living tissue. They can heal if you stop feeding the inflammation and start giving them what they need. That's why I often recommend that men over 60 focus on 3 simple things every morning: oxygen, hydration, and nitric oxide support. For oxygen, take 5 deep, slow breaths before you even get out of bed. Most people underestimate how much oxygen impacts blood flow. Shallow breathing leads to constricted vessels. Deep breathing opens them up. For hydration, aim for a full glass of water right after waking. It helps thin your blood naturally and makes circulation smoother. And for nitric oxide support, that's where your diet comes in. Foods like beets, spinach, walnuts, and pomegranate are incredible for restoring nitric oxide production. These are circulation boosters. Replace your daily cashews or processed snacks with these, and you'll start feeding your arteries what they truly need. When Harold began making these small changes, cutting out cashews, adding walnuts, and a morning beet drink, his transformation was remarkable. Within a few weeks, his hands and feet felt warmer, his stamina improved, and his confidence returned. "Doc," he said one morning during his follow-up, "I didn't just get my performance back, I feel alive again." That's the hidden benefit men often overlook. It's not only about erections, it's about total vitality. Better circulation means more energy, sharper memory, stronger heart health, and better mood. The body works as one system. When you restore blood flow in one area, everything improves. And that's why I'm sharing this message with you today. Because too many men are silently struggling, thinking they're just getting older, when in reality, they're just eating and breathing the wrong way for their current stage of life. If this message makes sense to you, if you've ever wondered why your body isn't performing like it used to, even though you're trying, let me know. Type yes in the comments. I personally go through them every week, and your responses help me shape what topics I cover next. Also, if you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's a small action, but it tells YouTube to show this message to more men who might desperately need to hear it. You never know whose life you might help change by doing that. Now, I want to share one more patient story that shows just how powerful these changes can be. George, age 74, came to me convinced his best years were behind him. He'd tried supplements, prescriptions, even expensive shockwave treatments, and nothing seemed to last. When we looked at his lifestyle, the same pattern appeared: high inflammation, poor circulation, and a diet loaded with healthy snacks that weren't so healthy. Once we eliminated those inflammatory triggers, including cashews, and rebuilt his nitric oxide with natural foods, George experienced something I'll never forget. He came back 6 weeks later, eyes bright, shoulders up. "Doc, I didn't think I'd feel like this again. Not just physically, but emotionally. I feel like myself again." When Harold came in for his last checkup, it had been nearly 3 months since he made those small but powerful changes. He wasn't just smiling this time, he looked lighter. His energy had shifted. "Doc, I feel like I've got my life back. My wife notices it. I wake up feeling good. my mornings are stronger, and I'm not afraid anymore. That's what I want for every man watching this right now. To wake up with that same confidence, that same quiet strength, knowing your body is working for you again. And it doesn't come from expensive pills or secret formulas. It comes from understanding what your body needs and what it doesn't. So let's talk about how you can protect your performance for the long haul. It starts with consistency. The body responds to what you do every day, not what you do once in a while. Harold's recovery came because he committed to 3 things: eating foods that supported circulation, staying active in a way that didn't exhaust him, and keeping his stress under control. Each morning, he began his day with a simple 5-minute ritual: a glass of water, slow breathing, and a few light stretches to wake up his body. Then, he'd have a small breakfast with walnuts and berries, not cashews. Sometimes he'd add spinach or beet juice. That combination alone gave his blood vessels a powerful nitric oxide boost. And here's something you should know. When you improve nitric oxide naturally, your body begins to regulate itself again. Testosterone levels balance, mood stabilizes, and your body starts to remember how to perform like it once did. This isn't magic. It's biology working the way it was meant to. But the key is removing what's causing harm first. For many men, that means eliminating inflammatory foods like cashews, vegetable oils, and processed snacks. You can't fill a bucket with holes, and inflammation pokes holes in your system faster than you think. George, the 74-year-old I mentioned earlier, summed it up perfectly. He said, "Doc, I didn't realize how much damage I was doing just by eating what I thought was healthy." When he switched out his snacks, stayed hydrated, and made those small daily choices, everything changed. His circulation improved, his sleep deepened, his morning energy, the kind he hadn't felt in years, came roaring back. And here's something truly inspiring. George told me that one night, he and his wife sat down to talk about how they'd both been feeling, and for the first time in years, he said, "I felt like my confidence came back. Not just physically, but emotionally. I wasn't ashamed anymore." That's what this is really about. Not just erections or performance, but self-respect. The feeling of being vital, strong, and alive in your own body. That's the message I want you to take away from this. That you're not too old, it's not too late, and your body is capable of healing itself when you give it the right tools. Now, if you've been following along and this message resonates with you, if something in your gut is telling you this makes sense, I want to hear from you. Type yes in the comments below. I personally read each one because your feedback helps me guide future videos to better serve you and other men in this community. Also, if you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Tap the bell icon so you'll be notified when I share the next piece of advice. You never know, one small insight could change everything for you, just like it did for Harold and George. Before we wrap up, let me leave you with something important. I've been a doctor for over 30 years, and I've seen men from every walk of life. Veterans, teachers, businessmen, fathers, grandfathers, all dealing with the same silent frustration. And in nearly every case, the turning point wasn't a prescription, it was awareness. The moment they realized, I have control over this. You do too. You have the power to rebuild your strength, reclaim your vitality, and restore your confidence. It starts with small daily choices, the foods you eat, the habits you build, and the belief that your body still wants to thrive. You're not broken. You're simply being asked to take better care of the system that's carried you this far.